Every strong classroom, school, and district is shaped by educators who were trained, mentored, and guided by someone along the way. But we rarely talk about the people who prepare those educators and leaders in the first place. Today's guest works at that level, mentoring doctoral candidates, developing future leaders in education, and building programs that influence classrooms far beyond campus. This is a conversation about educator formation, mentorship, and leadership that multiplies impact. This is the Bulldog Mindset. Welcome to the Bulldog Mindset, a podcast about purpose, people, and the work that brings Gardner-Webb University to life through learning, leadership, and service. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Pillar, Assistant Provost for Academic Affairs and Professor here at Gardner-Webb, coming to you from the historic Elliott House on our campus. On today's episode, I'm joined by Dr. Jennifer Putnam, Associate Dean of the College of Education and Professor of Education, and Coordinator of the Ed.D program in Curriculum and Instruction. Dr. Putnam brings a rare blend of experience across the full educator pipeline. She spent many years as a classroom teacher and instructional coach, and now works closely with master's and doctoral candidates preparing to lead in schools and districts. Her work includes doctoral mentoring, dissertation leadership, program development, accreditation support, and extensive university service, along with ongoing teaching and scholarship focused on teacher leadership, feedback, self-efficacy, and educator support in post-COVID landscape. Today we'll talk about her journey from the classroom to doctoral mentor and associate dean, and what it takes to prepare and support educators today, what doctoral mentoring really looks like behind the scenes, and how quiet, steady leadership shapes strong academic programs. With that, Dr. Putnam, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Well, let's start. You spent about 2 decades in the K-12 classroom and instructional coaching before moving into higher ed. Talk us through a little bit of your journey from K-12 into higher ed.
So I started as an adjunct first while I was still in public schools, and as has happened many times in my life, somebody's kind of tapped me on the shoulder, and I was in a classroom actually, and somebody from our central office had received a phone call from another institution that said, we need somebody that can be an adjunct for us. Do you have anybody in mind? And so she came and visited and said, would you be interested? Apply, and I did. So I worked as an adjunct for like 10 years while I was still teaching as an instructional coach. And at that role, I worked with undergraduate candidates and really loved it. I enjoyed watching them grow, And from there, I moved into, then I went on and got my doctorate, and then moved into this role at Gardner-Webb. And I started as I was hired, I went into the adjunct, working with the master students. And so I've stayed in that realm since I've been at Gardner-Webb.
So did pursuing the doctorate, was that something that came about because you had then, you started teaching in higher ed? Did that drive pursuing that, or was that something already in the thoughts that would have happened regardless of having been an adjunct?
Yeah, I never, ever had a thought that I wouldn't get my doctorate. It is kind of strange because I am a first-generation college graduate, but my family really valued education, and it was always when you go to college, and there was never a time in my life that I didn't think I would go to college. I didn't know exactly how that would happen. I didn't understand really the landscape and how you got from step A to step B. But I was fortunate enough to earn a scholarship as a freshman, and so that provided me the means and the way into education. I can't remember a time when I didn't want to be an educator. So it all just naturally fell. My husband and I took turns going to school. We undergraduate, and then he got his master's. I got my master's. I got my doctorate. He got his doctorate. So we spent a lot of time back and forth in education through the years, and there was just never a time I didn't want to do that. Yeah.
The longer I've been in higher ed, what I have found more and more fascinating talking with professionals and other colleagues like yourself is understanding that path to higher ed. Because oftentimes, not to say there's not those situations, and for you it sounds like when you were younger, education was something that you had this interest in going to. But for so many in higher ed in general, that wasn't necessarily the original plan.
Yeah.
Whether now they're a professor of education or a professor of biology or a professor of history, there was something else. And then along the way, whether it was a mentor, whether it was an experience, something steered them towards that path, towards maybe it's a little bit assumptuous to say just higher ed, but towards teaching, towards mentorship in there. And so I just find those stories fascinating. Like, what was it that, brought you there? Other administrators, because rarely do you talk to little kids, or I think about my son, and you'll hear the common, oh, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be a teacher. But you don't necessarily hear things like professor, assistant dean, dean, provost. Those are not things that come out from that. So I find those kinds of conversations very fascinating. So you mentioned you started in undergrad instruction and mentorship, but now you've moved more into the graduate. In particular, well, you said first master's, but now it's heavy in doctoral.
Yes,
work,
mostly doctoral. I teach a class or two at the master's level, but
Was that sort of just a natural progression, or was there a turning point that shifted?
it was a natural progression. I started off at the master's level, and I was the coordinator for it started off as a master's in elementary education, and then it morphed into master's of curriculum and instruction over several years. And then as we had different people move into other roles, then I assumed the role as the coordinator of the doctoral program in curriculum and instruction.
You mentioned there a little bit too in terms of your role shifting or the program shifting, and I want to come back to that in a little bit because I have a feeling from my limited experience working in higher ed, a lot of those shifts sometimes happen where, yes, within an institution making changes, but also due to changes by state Department of Public Instruction, or even beyond that, federal level or accreditation. I'll come back to that, but I want to talk a little bit more about just your background and experience first. You also served as an instructional coach. And how has some of those experiences, both as a K-12 teacher, but also as an instructional coach, how has that shaped the work that you do now at Gardner-Webb?
Well, it gives me the necessary background, first of all, to understand where our students, our candidates are coming from, like what they live every day. Because I was a teacher, because I was an instructional coach, and because I had those experiences, I can speak the language, and I understand the stresses they feel. I understand the successes they have, and what they care about. So that's really, I think, a big strength, and I think our candidates appreciate it when there's somebody teaching in higher education towards their degree who has the same experiences they do.
Well, and that helps immensely, I'm sure, just building that rapport with them through that. Now, you mentioned that a key part of that is the fact that, you have that shared experience that you can speak with them. But again, over time, a lot of things have changed. And, for me, my background in environmental chemistry, I would have to stay current and just in, the nature of the chemistry of contaminants, what contaminants are out there and so forth. So for you, how being that you're now, mainly in higher ed, but what helps to keep you current in terms of what they are experiencing? Is it through those interactions with them, or how often do you find yourself visiting, observing classrooms?
It is actually through those interactions with them and their dissertation work. Because we are an EDD program, our dissertations are practical minded, and they're meant to support sites and districts in improvement. And so relevant topics are always brought forth. We, mentor our candidates so that they have the means and that they are working on a project that's really important at this site or this site or this district. And so we have a really special relationship with doc students also. There are other adults that we respect, and I learn so much from them just as much as they learn from me. So.
Well, and you had mentioned, I just knowing from working with you that you've described yourself as a lifelong learner. So that leads, I guess, a little bit then to my next question. You've hinted at it already, but, I guess, how can you characterize, or is there any particular experiences with those candidates that have particularly stood out that have, taught you as much as you've taught them?
Every single class, every interaction teaches me something. My students tease me because every class I teach, I say, this is my favorite class. And when I say it, I'm telling the truth in that moment. I have such joy being in a classroom and interacting with students. And so there hasn't been a class that I haven't enjoyed. There hasn't been a group that I haven't enjoyed. I know that it sounds like I'm sidestepping, but I'm really not. That's really how I feel.
No, and I'm sure you get a chuckle out of the students when you say that, because I'm sure they're probably thinking, oh, you say that to everybody.
Yeah.
But no, I can definitely understand and relate to what you're saying. Briefly earlier, you had mentioned back, our program's an EDD program, and for some of the folks out there listening, knowing the nomenclature of higher ed and things like that, may not understand what that really means. So can you talk a little bit about the difference? They're both doctoral degrees, but they're actually the common one is PhD, but there's many others out there. Whether it's Doctor of Ministry, Doctor of Business Administration. Tell us a little bit about what the EDD is and how that. Again, it's a doctoral level degree, but how does that differ from other doctoral?
Well, it's a Doctor of Education, and so the research that they do at the end of their program, their dissertation work, is focused on an educational issue, and we have all of the partners in North Carolina, all of the districts that we work with. A lot of our candidates partner with their district to find an issue that they want researched, and they are the vehicle to pull the data, to analyze it, to present it. And sometimes candidates work outside of their districts on a larger issue, equity or something that they want to find out about, but it improves the landscape of education. So two of the pieces of their last chapter 5 of their dissertation for an EDD is always recommendations for practice, like after I've done this research, what should change because of what I found, and then recommendations for further research, which always occurs. But this recommendations for practice is really the touchstone, like that is the point after we're all said and done for that dissertation work.
Yeah. And it's a key distinction, but having for myself in the sciences, getting a PhD, it's been talking with learning from colleagues with EDDs, and again in the other suite of doctoral programs, really understanding the nuances between them and the specificity to the discipline. And it's interesting. There's more and more actually doctoral level degrees still sprouting out there anyway, in terms of Doctor of Psychology, Doctor of and so there's still not to say there's not PhD. You can get a PhD in education in some places.
Yes, you can, absolutely.
But the nature of the program is just, as you've mentioned, has that practical aspect to it. Well, I want to come back to earlier when I made the comment. I want to come back to, you talked about, you inferred a little bit about changes in program or changes in offerings. One of the things I think that a lot of people just don't understand is education is one of those disciplines. It's a professional discipline. I would, similar to in the medical sciences or in nursing or so forth, where it's not just simply the nature of the program and what the faculty feel like this is the curriculum, this is what's important. You're also dealing with, state requirements, because you're preparing teachers who are going to become licensed. So Department of Public Instruction. You're also dealing with accreditation, and by that I mean program level accreditation. Can you talk or give us, a snapshot of just how, the nature of how those other, inputs, influences, makes your job, both, it could be, smoother, but at the same time, I know it creates challenges. So can you just talk a little bit about trying to wrangle all aspects of that in the programs that you guys offer?
Yeah, there's a lot. There are lots of moving parts at all times, but we're always in the College of Education working towards continuous improvement. And So we talk with each other, we get feedback, but we also talk with our candidates, feedback about the programs. We talk with our district partners, with higher education colleagues across the state. We talk with our accreditation partners, and so we are always trying to meet the needs of educators, and that might come from shifting a program around because this is a new need. It might come from or might lead to changes within the program just so that it better meets the needs. And I mean, it can be as small as we have a project that we ask them to do, and we review the scores on that project at the end of every semester or every couple of semesters to say, oh, where are we doing a good job teaching these students this, and where are they struggling, and what can we do to support our candidates in this area? And we're doing that work right now, and so it's always static. I mean, it's never static. It's always changing. Somebody who took the program 3 years ago would say, oh, I took that course, but walking in would say, okay, some of this is the same, but there's a lot of things different.
There's a lot of things different.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, considering that there are disciplines out there where there may not be a lot of change over, say, a couple years, but in education, I mean, maybe perhaps there's some courses where that change is a little bit more either gradual or not near as intense, but I'm sure there's some where from semester to semester, year to year,
oh yeah,
there's change. And a student from a year ago coming back in being like, I don't remember the course being like this. What are not to, I guess, put you on the spot, but in terms of you work a lot with in educational leadership in that area. I'm assuming many of the candidates are either aspiring to go into like becoming principals or leadership roles in their schools. Is that accurate in terms of pursuing?
Well, and it kind of depends on which program they're in, because we also have an EDD in educational leadership, and so that doctorate, which is run, or the coordinator for that is Dr. Dale Lamb. That program is geared towards educational leaders who maybe want to become, superintendents or central office. The curriculum and instruction doctorate also, it prepares candidates to be central office leaders of curriculum. We get a lot of principals who want to strengthen their curriculum instruction skills. We also get candidates who want to move into higher education. And
I was going to ask about that.
Yep, and so we've had several of our candidates have gotten jobs as assistant professors across North Carolina, across the nation actually. So it's we love that.
And that's an important point. I mean, the undergrad degree is very common, and required in most states to be a licensed teacher. But the graduate degrees, although it absolutely advances the careers of your teachers and school leadership in K-12, those are also very attractive to people outside the world of education. And so you hinted a little bit at that, those who maybe want to go into higher ed. What other, I guess, fields would someone want, whether it was a master's degree or doctoral degree, would they potentially find, employment or a career in if they got a graduate degree?
So we have, the Masters of Curriculum and Instruction, and then we have the Masters of School Administration, and that one is geared specifically towards principals. And then we have the Ed Leadership Doctorate, and then we have the Curriculum and Instruction Doctorate. As far as the curriculum, the Ed Leadership and the school administration is pretty straightforward. That is, school-based.
Okay.
Although, somebody with a doctorate in school administration could certainly get a job in a college of education somewhere else. The curriculum instruction is a little wider. We mostly get people with education degrees, but it's not 100%. We always have people who don't have an education degree in our program. They can work in writing curriculum. They could work with textbooks. They could work with, even in the medical field, to write curriculum for professional development. They can certainly work in the education field. They can work in higher education. Anything that, sometimes even in like media, just talking about curriculum in general and working in. We've had somebody move into a lobbyist group because of their background with curriculum instruction and working with the Department of Education. So, it's really wide-ranging.
Well, and that's where it's important, undergrad through graduate. Again, there's a lot of stigma sometimes that comes with, oh, you're pursuing this degree, that must mean it's this kind of job you're gonna get. And the reality is yeah, I mean, there obviously, if you're pursuing a nursing degree, your intent is to go into the nursing field and not to become a farmer.
Right.
But that's a bit of a being dramatic, but how individuals utilize those degrees, depending upon how creative or even just the skills they pick up along the way in pursuing that, there really could be a wider range of opportunity out there than just by going off the name of the degree.
Yes.
Have you noticed, has that gotten for students, I guess, easier, more difficult, or really no different over the years? Because as I think back, I don't know, today I have my thought. I guess I'll get your thought on that first. In terms of, are students, typecast based on the name of their degree, or are you seeing that they really do have more flexibility nowadays compared to, say, 10, 15, 20 years ago?
Well, I will say that most of the candidates who come in really think of their degree in a narrow scope and, one way. We, in the last semester of coursework for all of our doctoral programs, the College of Ed runs we call it the Next Steps Conference, and in that conference we have people talk about what you could do with your degree, and we try to open that up so that people are aware there are other avenues than what you maybe originally thought. And so I think us helping them understand that there's more than one way to think about this degree has supported people in using their degree in ways that they didn't think of it to begin with.
Well, and that's where, and again, it's an area that I've done a lot of work on recently, or just as there's criticism about higher ed and the value of degrees. Graduate degrees are always in a different just universe, but the value of the undergrad degree, and it's part of it is helping people really understand that, say if you're pursuing a bachelor's of history, right away, what are you going to do with that? And there's, really a wide. You could go into business, you could go, work strategy or risk assessment in, another industry, and so it's the same thing with graduate.
Yes.
Granted, like as you pointed out, some of the leadership programs are more specific to and of most benefit. Thus, the students enrolled are going to be K-12 educators looking to advance within K-12, but it's still there's wide ranging. Well, this is a great place to pause. So we've been talking a bit about educator preparation, doctoral mentoring. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll widen the lens a little bit and learn a little bit more about Dr. Putnam, as well as how this moment in education is shaping the way we prepare and support educators going forward. We'll be right back.
For many students, financial struggles aren't just a temporary inconvenience. They can be the deciding factor between continuing their education or stepping away. Bulldog Cares was created to ensure that unexpected financial burdens don't force students to put their dreams on hold or walk away from their future. This fund assists students in covering urgent needs such as medical expenses, housing insecurity, transportation, food, and essential academic costs. Eligible students who are approved may receive financial assistance annually, providing a crucial safety net during challenging times. The application is simple, and Gardner-Webb staff are ready to help students navigate the process with care and understanding. However, Bulldog Cares relies on donor support to continue serving students in need. A single contribution can mean the difference between a student staying in school or having to pause their education. When you give to Bulldog Cares, you're directly impacting a student's future, offering stability and the opportunity to complete their degree. This program is more than financial aid. It's a testament to Gardner-Webb's values of community, passion, and support. If you need help or want to be a part of a student success story, Bulldog Cares is here to offer relief and hope. Students, don't hesitate. Apply today. And donors, be the change. Visit gardner-webb.edu/bulldog-cares.
Welcome back to the Bulldog Mindset. I'm Greg Pillar, your host, and today I'm joined by Dr. Jennifer Putnam, Associate Dean in the College of Education and Professor here at Gardner-Webb University. So jumping back into our conversation, Dr. Putnam, education programs sit under heavy accountability expectations from accreditation, state agencies, of course, perhaps more so at the undergrad level, but even at the grad level. How do you balance compliance requirements with authentic educator training?
One of the things that we gather at the end of all of our candidates' experience at Gardner-Webb is feedback on the program. And one of the things we're really proud of is that the feedback from our graduating members tell us that they didn't feel like they were doing busy work. They felt like we call them evidences, but the projects that they do, these big projects that they do every semester in the master's program or the doctoral programs, were relevant, that they were difficult, but it opened their eyes, that it gave them data to take back to their districts, that they were able to use that data, that it made them stronger leaders. And so we're really proud of that, and it's another reason why we continually seek their feedback, because we want to make sure our program is relevant and that we're not doing things just to check a box, but we're doing things that are meaningful to educators and education.
Building off of that, you've done extensive work in program evaluation and program fidelity. When you look at educator preparation programs, when you work at the work that you're doing within curriculum and instruction, what signals tell you that things are truly working or gelling?
Well, we look at so many factors. We look at the how satisfied our candidates are in their degree. We look at the scores that they're making on each of those projects that they do. We have discussions with our candidates in class, after class. In the current class, we talk about, hey, what you did last semester and how does that shape what you're going to do this semester, and what was valuable about last semester, what was hard about it, what do you wish we weren't going to do again? Like, we continually have those conversations, so we know. Like it's, as I talked about earlier, it's just a constant improvement cycle, and we are just never static. We're always trying to make this the best experience it can be for the candidates and to make it relevant.
It's interesting. So what resonated with what you're saying there is these programs, or your programs, they truly sort of evolve for that individual candidate.
Absolutely.
And so it's a case of where, let's pretend for a moment we would clone a candidate, and both of them would go through the program at the same time. Even going through at the same time, based on their experiences, based on what they're doing, they could end up with sort of two completely different, not experiences, but just what they
get out
what they get out of it.
Absolutely. In fact, like in a class. In our courses right now, we have people who are working in higher ed right now and who have come back to get a doctorate because they are seeking to get to work in a different capacity in higher ed. So they're not in public schools. We have candidates who are in elementary schools. We have candidates who are working at the central office. We have candidates who are principals. We have candidates who are high school teachers or counselors. And then we have people who are not in education at all. And all of those candidates are able to do the same projects, and we just talk with them about how to shape the project so that it fits their needs, fits the situation that they're in, so that it will still be valuable. And that's, I think candidates are always worried about that when they feel like, well, I I'm not a public school teacher or whatever. They're always worried that that's going to hinder their ability to be successful, and it never does. And that diversity in our classrooms, that range of experiences is so valuable to talk with. A lot of times other educators really are stuck in their site, and they don't get to have conversations and understand what's going on in other, maybe they understand their district but don't understand the whole state or other levels. So it's a great opportunity to have conversations and for all of us to learn from each other.
So, well, and it just sounds like there's just a lot more feedback loops. I mean, there are many other graduate programs out there where they're just not, the design of them, just how they are not like that. And so I can really see then from start to finish, it's impossible not to have this connectiveness through the classes, through even if you got stretches of where maybe you're not in an active class, but you're taking dissertation credits or whatnot, still going through those iterations of versions of your chapters or your dissertation. But those loops, not only helping the student themselves, the candidate themselves, but benefiting those around them, learning, picking up things, from that person, who is not in education,
Right.
but they've got that perspective from a different area. That I don't know. I haven't really quite thought about it in that way. That I think that's a strong advantage, benefit of education graduate programs that you just don't have in others. I'll use my own master's and doctoral experiences where my master's in particular, where a lot of the courses were just sort of, overall there was a connectiveness-ish, but they still came across as isolated experiences, learning opportunities, and not near as cohesive.
Yeah, that cohesion. So we have a cohort model in all of our graduate programs, and that really, really builds family. We really, I think it's a word that could be overused, but it's so true. We feel like a family. You bond with your cohort members. Your instructors love you as a cohort and as individuals, and it really strengthens the whole experience. So.
Well, yeah, because now you have, it's not just that so-and-so is in one or two of your classes. They're in all of the classes in the program.
That's right.
So you have also that shared, experience for the candidate to, when they get stuck or frustrated, then they've got some other people that they can lament with. But.
That is exactly right. And I always that's so funny that you say that. And so they know that I'm going to, to your point, I'm going to give them feedback. And I say to them on the first day, listen, you're going to get mad at me, and that's okay. Like, I know you're going to be mad, and you're going to text each other, and you're going to say, can you believe that she said this to me on my paper? But I said, but it's okay. I will love you. You can be mad at me, and you can tell me later that you got mad at me, but you will think that I'm right at one point. Sometime or another, you'll tell me I was right. And so it's good to have somebody to, be able to talk about the professor to. So,
but even being, I don't know, it's I guess it's empathetic, but even having that level of transparent or self-awareness, I guess, and acknowledging that to them helps to take off a bit of, but sometimes, I don't know, where the students are intimidated or just the separation between the student and the faculty member, where it gets to the point, and we talked about this on this podcast with other faculty, to where the students don't utilize office hours or don't come in as the professor because they feel, I use the word intimidated, that might be a strong word, but they're going to give me negative criticism, or they're going to, but you're just like, look, it's going to happen, but it's good, it's all good. Well, we've been talking about, again, a lot of conversation about doctoral and graduate programs in education, and as well as education leadership. But, a lot of the terms already that we've discussed, people hear those, but they rarely see and fully understand what's being taught and developed inside these programs. So that brings us to a special segment that we call the hidden curriculum. And the hidden curriculum, there's many aspects of this throughout a university, but basically, this is where we surface parts of, academic and professional preparation that are very real, very intentional, but often not visible either to the students themselves or to others as well. So in educator preparation and doctoral programs, what is something that is perhaps explicitly taught, so the students, this would be, yep, I'm aware of that, I know that. But most people outside education would be surprised, perhaps surprised or just not realize is part of that development.
So one of the things that's taught is, there's so many things, but one thing is, data collection, data analysis. That's going to be important in every course, and especially as they move through their dissertation work. And I think people would think of that would be part of a doctoral program. But one of the things specifically in curriculum and instruction that is a hidden curriculum is this ability to understand your own strengths and your own leadership capabilities. And so a lot of times we get some candidates in curriculum instruction who have explicitly chosen to go the curriculum and instruction route and not the ed leadership route because they want to stay in the classroom, they don't see themselves as leaders, and then we gently force them into leadership positions by some of the projects that they do. And as they move through the program, that confidence in their leadership skills and what they are able to do manifests itself, and they discuss it, and they talk about themselves in a leadership role. And that's a joyful thing to watch transpire. Yeah.
Is that something then where it's a pretty big thing to switch from one program to another, but
they don't switch, but we do have an opportunity. So the curriculum and instruction, as I said, some people from ed leadership, they have a principal, already has a degree in school administration, and they choose curriculum and instruction on purpose because they want to do curriculum and instruction. They want to.
I got you.
But some people don't, and at the end of our program, we do have a way for them to take a course or two to get that degree. That has been a very, very successful.
Interesting.
And we've had every year. I think we had 14 of our candidates who took that, entered that program, who went from curriculum instruction, and so they're at the doctoral level. So they've spent all this time thinking, I don't want to be a principal. I don't want to go into leadership, and now say, I think I've got that skill. I think I do.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's very popular.
Well, and I can see that again being something. Well, clearly, they came in thinking this is that path for me, but through that development, through that experience, that changing. Well, thank you. That's excellent in terms of unveiling the hidden curriculum. So before we get too close to the end, I want to talk a little bit beyond just the nature of the world of education, and talk a little bit about the work that you specifically do. As you've carried many different roles in your time at Gardner-Webb. Right now, one of those is associate dean. Talk a little bit about the work involved with that, and because a lot of that is stuff that's behind the scenes that students don't realize, families don't realize, other colleagues may not realize. But what does a typical day look like in terms of as associate dean?
There is no such thing as a typical day. You know that.
I know that.
Yes, that is not.
I should have phrased that differently.
Yes, that doesn't exist. I spend a lot of time talking people down from ledges.
Okay.
And one of the skills I think that I have is being able to put myself in somebody else's shoes. And so I understand when a student, a faculty member, whoever, has these feelings and for this reason. I can understand where they're coming from, whether it's justified or not, where they may misunderstand something, or maybe it's just they're just feeling incredibly overwhelmed and just need to listen. So I spend a lot of time doing that and helping people see that it's going to be okay, that we just need to, break this issue down into smaller pieces, and this can get done. I spend a lot of time doing some background planning of things, so that other processes can actually happen. Just organizing things in certain ways. And then I spend a lot of time collaborating with others, because there are so many intelligent people in the College of Education, way more intelligent than me, and so together we have much better ideas than just one person. So there's a lot of collaboration going on.
And I know you've done a lot of committee work, accreditation work, and not necessarily just because you're associate dean, but just being, as you've mentioned, in that unit. But no doubt over time that associate dean role has strengthened your skill set and your tools. Is there anything in particular that you would say as being associate dean that has really helped you in your work, that through that experience being associate dean, wow, I was able to hone this skill or develop this attribute that I guess I probably wouldn't have if I wasn't having these conversations or talking people off the ledge?
In the same way that we let people in our programs see their leadership potential, I'm not somebody who likes the spotlight. And as you know, because I did not want to do this podcast for several, you asked me 3 times. I'm not a spotlight person, and I'm not somebody who seeks leadership roles, but they just keep happening. And so I think it took a while to think, oh, well, okay, I can do this. Yes, I have these skills. And of course, I've learned from, Dr. Bull, our other, leaders across campus. I watch and am inspired by what I see across campus and learn from that. So.
Well, we talked earlier, about career paths and not necessarily what we expected. And although you were looking to go into education, I'm sure associate dean was not on the checklist of I'll make sure I knock that off. But I do think when people are called into roles, whether it's from a mentor, whether it's just from even the need, the right people are usually called upon or tasked and. So no doubt your skill set has suited your students and the College of Education quite well. I want to talk briefly about your scholarship. You've done, not necessarily recently, but one of the areas that you've done some work is in the post-COVID landscape. From your work in that, what's something that from, we all saw it. COVID had a huge impact on everything from K-12 through higher ed. And I some people like to use the term, we've returned back to normal. It's a new normal. There's not a return back. One thing I can easily point to is just how it did accelerate the nature of online learning. That was something that all of a sudden everyone's thrust into it, and it's not quite like a full rubber band where you can completely snap back. We're in a different place. So is there anything that stood out in your work looking at that post-COVID landscape that is the most just insightful or that resonated with you?
At first, I am not sure that we have yet captured all the ripple effects of COVID. It's 2026 now, so it's only been 6 years. So those students coming in will, this year would have been in middle school during COVID. And that, those are just our freshmen.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we know all of those things. I remember, this is really funny that you're asking this question because I'm teaching a course this semester, and I was going back, looking at my old lesson plans, saying, you know, how do I want to begin the course, and am I still teaching the same thing I said I was going to be teaching then? And I pulled it up, and I saw that the last time I taught this course was in 2020, and it was in COVID. We were all shut down, and it was completely online. And I told one of my colleagues, I said, I opened that up and I got PTSD myself, just going, wow, I remember doing that teaching. And I teach online all the time. And I feel like I'm able to create community. I think I do the things that are supposed to happen in an online environment. But looking at that document brought all of that back to me. And I remember in those classes, and I remember us all coming back talking to each other, and I had online meetings one day with, 15 different students. It was just back to back to back students. Every single student, 15, every one burst into tears.
Oh, wow.
At some point during our conversation. And we were having a normal conversation. It was just the stress of COVID. And it was teachers and administrators and worried about their students and just all of that.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know that you just don't know. You don't know where that's headed yet.
But what's interesting with that, though, is for so many people, even though we're in, a new norm, we are far enough out that for some people, to a sense, they've forgotten about it, and I guess you can, in certain areas, depending on what your career is and what you did and how it impacted you, I guess that's possible. But it's important to realize, though, that like you said, not knowing the full effect of all the ripples and everything like that. I'm sure there's still times that things bubble up, whether people can even directly see, oh, that's related to it, or other times we're not realizing that no, that stems from the experience that they had to, for whatever it was, the sort of being holed up in our houses, the distancing, the wearing the masks, any of that.
Right.
Plus, again, not to mention people in professions where they're working with children and others. Well, as we wrap up, a few questions that we like to ask all of our guests on the podcast. The first one, I'm curious from your perspective, if you could go back and speak to yourself as a first-year teacher, what advice would you give?
I tell the candidates that I work with right now that it is okay to take a day off, that you need time to stop and refresh, go in nature. And I was working so hard, and I was working all day and all night. I was going to bed at midnight and getting up the next morning, and I did not take any time for myself. So I would tell that person, it's okay to take a Saturday off. It's like the students are going to be fine, and you will be too. That's what I would say.
That's very profound, and that applies to many different professions and things like that. Because whether it's your first opportunity or first job or something new, you always want to make a good impression. You want to make sure you're doing a good job. But sometimes, absolutely, the people can take it a bit too far. And at the end of the day, whether you spend that week 65 hours or 55 hours,
yeah, right.
It's still going to be there.
That's right.
You'll be fine. What do you most hope that your doctoral and graduate candidates carry forward after they've been either in your class or in the program that you work with them in?
That they're cared for, that we care about them as a person. They're not just a student, that I know their names, I know about their families, and, I cry. I tear up when they walk across the stage and we pronounce them doctor. I cry every time because I'm so proud of them. I really am. And I know what it took. You know what it takes to write a dissertation and to get it approved. And I just want to cheer. And so I want them to leave knowing, and I think they do. I think they do know that they are loved. Yeah.
Awesome. I think well, I may cry for a different reason. That is, since coming to Gardner-Webb, I now have an involvement in reading names.
Oh, bless you.
I just want to make sure
That's the worst.
I pronounce them correctly.
I've only told Dr. Bull no on one thing, and that was it.
That was it?
He wanted me to, and I was like, no, I'm not going to mess anyone's name up.
I got a little bit of a trial run at my previous institution 1 year, but I'm happy to do it. But there's a lot of prep that goes into. That is something that people don't realize the prep of practicing names and actually what's funny is at the end of the day, some of the most difficult names to pronounce, those folks do a real good job ahead of time giving us the pronunciation.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's some common names that I'll mess up, and when I realized that, it's a little cringy that I got the complicated name this time, but not the.
Well, it's so often that a regional name, is spelled this way and pronounced this way here, but a county over, it's pronounced a different way, and that's hard.
Yeah. Well, and I grew up with speech therapy for the first 6-7 years of my life, and a little bit of dyslexia, and so there's just times where it's not that I'm even seeing anything specifically backwards. It's just I get things crisscrossed, and even in my classes, I'll tell students, first day of class, excuse me if I mispronounce your names, and some of the folks right away, I can tell the ones who have confidence in names are like, oh, and I'm like, no, you guys are fine. It's the Smith, it's the Jones that somehow I'll find a way to mess up. Well, last question. You got the mic. What would you like to leave? Any final messages about educators, educational leaders, in education in general?
They are some of the most hardest working people on the planet. We don't give them enough credit. They don't get the praise that they deserve. They don't get the money that they deserve.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Yeah. So it's a privilege to work with them, and it's a privilege to hear and see the impact that they are making on others, and the ripple effects that that they're doing. So.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Putnam, thank you for taking the time to join me today, and for the leadership and mentorship that you bring to educator preparation and doctoral development. Very important, as you mentioned just now, praising those teachers, the work that our folks in higher ed are doing are no doubt equally important. This conversation highlights something I believe strongly, and that is strong institutions are built not only through programs and policies, but through the people who invest deeply in developing other professionals. The work that you do, the work our colleagues do with teachers, leaders, doctoral candidates, creates impact far beyond any single classroom or campus. Conversations like this are exactly why we created the Bulldog Mindset, to make visible the people and the work that shape learning and leadership and student success across Gardner-Webb University. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to follow the Bulldog Mindset wherever you listen to podcasts so you do not miss future conversations. You can also learn more about our programs, people, and mission at gardner-webb.edu. And as always, special thanks to Noel Manning, the steady hand behind the soundboard and the person who turns good conversations into great listening. He is the quiet architect of how this show comes together each week, and we are grateful for his craft and care. Until next time, stay focused on purpose, stay connected to students, and keep doing the work that makes a real difference. This is the Bulldog Mindset.